reflect what would have been worn by British soldiers in about 1815, so the same year as Waterloo. Now, although they're dressed as infantrymen, you'll notice they are getting ready to fire the artillery piece. It was not uncommon here in British North America to have infantrymen and militiamen trained to load and fire artillery pieces, even field artillery pieces like this. Primarily because, at least initially, there wasn't too many members of the Royal Artillery here in North America. Most of their numbers, of course, had to be fighting the French in Spain and in other parts of Europe. So there was only a few batteries here in North America, so they made up for the lack of numbers by training infantrymen to man the guns. Now what they're going to do is they're going to go through a dry run first. So all the steps necessary to load and fire the gun without doing so, and then they're actually going to do it again, but this time load a charge in. So I'll take the first time around as an opportunity to tell you all the steps involved in loading a gun like the one you see before you. And the first thing the gun crew has to do is clear out the bore of the barrel, the inside of the barrel, of any debris that might be down there from previous firings. To do that, historically, they would have used a long wooden pole with an iron hook or worm attached to the end. So that would bring out any particles from the previous cartridge loaded in. Next, the commander of the gun cleans out the vent hole at the breech of the barrel using a metal wired brush, after which he places his thumb over the vent hole, creating a tight vacuum seal, while the gentleman in front swabs out the inside of the barrel using a dampened sponge at the end of a long wooden post. So that would hopefully snuff out any burning embers, once again down there from previous fire. Then the charge would be brought up from one of the munition boxes that is kept to the reel. Of course, in this case, it's just they're just going through the motion, so nothing's actually being brought up. And then they would carefully set it into the mouth of the gun. Then they could ram it home to the breech of the barrel using the reverse end of the sponged implement. Once the charge is in place, they can prime the gun. To prime it, the commander of the gun sends a brass spike down the touch hole, piercing open the cartridge and exposing the gunpowder therein, and then would insert a quill, a tightly round paper tube filled with gunpowder. To ignite the quill, and thus discharge the gun, they'd use the implement there at the reel. It's a long wooden pole with a coil of burning slow match, or rope, attached to it. And that would be referred to as a linstock or port file. So now they're actually going to load and fire it. Now, a gun crew would normally have 5 men actually loading the piece, 1 man commanding, and then they would have additional men to the reel who would act as basically muscle power. It would be their job to push the gun back into place after each firing. You see, if they were actually firing a live round, the gun would recoil back several feet. So they had to push the gun back into place, re-aim it each time. And as you can imagine, that would be rather physically taxing. So they would reserve the men who were actually loading the gun to just do that, and have these additional men to the reel who would just be the muscle power. So they would divide the responsibilities around the gun that way. A well-trained gun crew should be able to load and fire this gun once every 2 minutes. So a pretty fast rate of fire, once again considering that the gun would recoil to the reel after each fire. And this particular field piece was designed to fire a solid iron 6-pound ball and would have a range of about 800 meters. So think of it much like a bowling ball. It's designed to go down the field, bouncing along as it goes, smacking into any targets that might be in its path. All right, here comes the loud part, ladies and gentlemen, so if you wish to plug your ears, you may do so. And that was an understrength charge. That was just 1/3 of a pound of powder. Historically, they would have had a far larger round, or a charge of powder down the barrel to expel the 6-pound ball. Well, that concludes the artillery firing for this afternoon. That also will conclude the 3 o'clock tour. As I mentioned a little while ago, if you wish to accompany me on the 4 o'clock tour, I will be starting that in front of the museum store, the canteen, at the top of the hour, so at 4 o'clock. And then at 4:30, the Fort York Guard will be out in its entirety to lower the garrison flag to signal the end of our operating day. But we officially close at 5 o'clock, so if you just arrived, you have now about an hour and a half to look around still. So thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen. Enjoy the rest of your stay here at Fort York and here